you know what, we're really excited to learn, and I know I'm just going to dive into experiments since I'm really big on experiments, and I know this is where you guys are at. Where we're at right now, we're trying to figure out their potential personas, like potential target audience, and try out different experiments that they could validate the market. And can you walk us through some of your experience?
Yeah. I think one hack is to design stuff that you'll want to have yourself to fix your own problems. It doesn't work for everything, but if you can imagine yourself using what you're building, it's so easy to see if you're getting somewhere or if it's not really doing anything for you. So, I loved using great mobile applications and websites, and I'm like, wow, if I could use all the stuff that's on the internet, the big desktop internet, but on my phone, wouldn't that be great? And it turned out to be, it wasn't just me, it was many different people that wanted to have mobile functionality available to them, and over time we found a great way to deliver that. I think when you start, it helps if you can solve your own pain, because you have limited time, and you are a good judge of if things are getting better or not. If you're building for something that's not to be used by you or people like you, it's a third party, then you have to spend time with them. As much time as you can to spend with your potential customers and say, if I built this and it did this, would you pay this much to help me get it to market? And you cannot replace that element of just going to potential customers and speaking to them about your solution. That's really all there is. Like, either you're the customer or you spend time with customers. I think that's one way to look at it. And it really helps if whatever you're trying to do is part of a big wave. So we started 11 years ago when mobile was just starting out, and we had a gut that's going to be a really big thing. And we're here today at MOBIFY with our 4th generation product. Like, we rebuilt ourselves 4 times, but because mobile got bigger and bigger and bigger, we could monetize our software in bigger and bigger ways and kind of still stay relevant with our skills and our insight and stuff. If you're betting on a wave that's too small, you will not be able to last 5-10 years, because it's just going to be a fad, go away, and something else will replace it. So also look for something that's going to be a lasting trend, and then innovate against that trend. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So I understand that initially how you started, just a little bit about yourself, that you were missing your bus, right? So you thought there would be a better solution to that. Okay, I wish I could get my bus schedule on my phone, and thank goodness for you, now we have the 333 for TransLink, right? So, but the thing is, your background is computer science, and you were able to develop that yourself without relying on anyone. So you developed the product first and then tested it out, right?
Yeah.
So wondering about the skill set. What if someone doesn't have the skills necessary to develop the product themselves? And what are the steps? What can they do to, in the most lean way, to create something that would get tested out?
Yeah. Also, another hack is that you can find solutions somewhere in the world and bring them to your own community. Like, I saw better mobile functionality for texting, whatever, when I was in exchange in Europe in 2005, and I came back here. I'm like, wow, it's like stone age of mobile technology in Canada with phone contracts, crappy handsets. I'm like, okay, this is going to change. So what if we bring this idea we saw in Europe to Vancouver? So it wasn't purely original thought. And I think there's really few truly novel ideas. I think it's actually probably impossible to come up with new ideas, because even if you think something is new, your mind is remixing concepts and adding one thing to another, and there comes the answer. So I think you don't always have to create something that you think is like so brand new to create value and to help potential customers. I think it's a valid observation, Maryam, that not all people can build product technology. I certainly can't build the software we sell today. I realized a couple of years in that my business partner, John, was much better CTO, and our team was much better engineers. So I focused on the business. So it's all about the team. And there's a few teams here today. It's the right way to do it. You can succeed as a solo founder, but it's probably like at least twice as hard. So I think if you have one partner or two, it's optimal. And if you can specialize in different things, it's even better. Because then you can really have a cohesive unit that's almost like a small company. You can delegate the work. You can be there for them when it's dark for them, they can be there for you, and it's dark for you because it's going to be tough sometimes. And I think that's also a way to minimize risks and also rely on your network more, because 2 or 3 people have a larger network to find customers, to find maybe some early investment. Just 2 heads are better than 1. I think it's really true.
And how quickly would you say, how long did it take to develop that first prototype? And then how long did it take to get it tested out?
Yeah, so I think the bus schedule thing is kind of funny because we're known for this in Vancouver more than for our super duper advanced commerce stuff, because all of us ride the bus, right? And we all kind of see this stuff working here. But it took me 3 nights to write the prototype, and then we mentioned it to a professor who didn't tell us, but he put it into a newspaper. Like, oh, my students did this. And then the radio picked it up, and papers picked it up in Vancouver, and suddenly it became a spiral hit. And we thought we're like kings of the land, 3 nights of coding, and now the city is talking about us. Of course, in a week that was over, but we got the bug of trying to do things and trying to create things that others could use, and saw the opportunity to really kind of have our own path in life and not have to look for a job after graduation. So that was important for us. But also, later on, you put more and more work into research, or you should. Like right now, we invested millions of dollars of R&D into our latest product. So a lot of work was spent talking to current customers, new customers, analysts that really know the space, our investors. So the more you bet, the more you should do up front. But early on, it's about the speed. How can you quickly understand if you're in the right direction and just get to work? Because you don't have a limited time. And the faster you get to a prototype, the first dollar of revenue, the first customer says yes, the better off you'll be.
To me, what's really interesting is that, so right now we're all trying to prepare a pitch deck for the investors, right? But you were able to fund your own company. And could you tell us, I love the idea of giving people autonomy and power. So how can we shift that mindset and design, businesses that you could pretty much fund yourself? And how did you do that?
Yeah, so we started the business in 2007 when it was the worst time to raise investment. It was the financial crisis. People just kind of left out the door, like, mobile what? We don't need mobile stuff. It's too small, right? So, okay, the only way to pay rent is to charge customers for something. So we did a TransLink deal. We built a product, sold it to another customer. So for us, it was no choice, and it forced us to do it that way. And also, that's the mainstream. If you can find money to assist that, it's also helpful. Like, we applied for government grants. In Canada, you can get good grants for even early stage companies, and we got some good money in our 3rd year. Some people have friends and family that can invest seed investment, which can be also really important. I would not say no to that. But for us, it was customers and it was grants. And we ended up doing so well that we, without external kind of VC investors, got to over $10 million in revenue, and then investors started getting interested. And for our next thing, people said, okay, there's a team, there's a market, we'll give you some investment to grow. But early on, we tried. Nobody would give us money, but we wanted to survive as a business, and we found that it was easier to sell to customers than try to look for investors.
And I just wanted to say this is an interactive session, so feel free. You have a question, just jump in.
Yeah, please.
Do you have any question at this point?
So you brought your idea and you gave the idea to your partner, or both came up with the idea? Both were in Europe, or how was it?
Depends on who you ask. No, I'm just kidding. It's pretty clear for us. So John is, I met John, our CTO, first day of school. So we were friends through the school years, went exchange together and worked together well. And we actually both were into mobile technology. He was more web, I was more mobile. And we both interviewed at Microsoft because he noticed us, these kind of interesting, bright, mobile-minded students. And he got the offer and I didn't, because they put me into engineer track, which I'm not good at, and he was the product management track, and he's good at everything. So I had to convince him to abandon his offer to start a company with me to take this idea to market. And thankfully, he was into it. And almost 12 years later, here we are.
That's amazing. Were you paying him?
Well, we went in as 50-50 partners. So initially, it was no money, and then we did our first deal. So we split it 50-50. We always had the same salary, and it was enough for us to rent an apartment a couple blocks from here and pay ourselves like $1,000 a month to survive. But we felt like magic because we didn't have managers. and we could work our own projects. Because even as students, we had internships, and we just saw how horrible it can be. These stuffy big companies that are not exciting. We're like, okay, if we can avoid this fate, we'll try anything. And early on, that enthusiasm carried us through, and then you made more money, pay yourself a bit more. So that's how it played out.
You know how they say that sometimes you just need to dive in and forget about, your other job, just dive in and start your startup. And is that what you did, or you had your internship and meanwhile you were working? Because financially, for us, if we want to support ourselves, what's the best? I mean, it depends on someone's financial situation, but what do you recommend? Because there's always this dream of, oh no, just let go of your job and then.
So I think as average advice, I think it's wrong. I think we were lucky to be out of school with no obligations, no bills to pay, and that was a unique time to do that. And our risks were pretty low. Like if we fail, we both get jobs, and it's like normal life. But if you're somebody with family, with children, with a career, like things are at stake. And I think it's true that to really succeed in a huge way, you can do it part-time. But I also think it's not on day one that you have to do that. It becomes very clear. You have to work really hard, bring in your paycheck and doing stuff part-time. But then you see the indicators of, okay, there's income there. And if I focus full-time, then I'm going to get this, and maybe it's less than I used to get, but at least I'm not like struggling to pay my rent. So I think it's really that approach. It can work if you just go head first, but also people fail, and it can be really painful, and it can kill any future enthusiasm for anything else if you put too much at risk. So I would actually advocate for a more balanced approach, without losing passion, without losing focus, and making that still your goal, but don't completely go in without being ready for it, because it's going to be longer than you think, and you have to pay for a roof over your head somehow, right?
Right. Thank you.
When you formed the company, did you start with 50-50 with the partner, or you had like 60-40, or how was that ratio?
So because of our history together, being best friends, like 50-50 was the only thing that really even came to mind. At the same time, advice today is that it can really depend. Like because you can start a company where you might have capital, connections, experience, but you just lack a critical skill. And somebody can come in, they have the skill, but they don't have as much other things they can contribute. So you could argue that it shouldn't be an even split. Because that's actually the beauty of corporations, that you can really balance it out. But then, of course, you better know what you're doing, because if you do that and there's a sense of inequality from day one, you're going to fail down the road, right? So you have to make sure that it's something both parties are okay with, and then it can work.
This ratio still stays the same since the day one. A 50-50 relationship is still there.
So
it's ownership.
Yes, it stays the same relatively, right? But then, of course, as you get investors, they get shares. So, like today, if you look at cap table, we have equal ownership, but it's not 50-50 because we have investors that want ownership too.
Anybody else?
I have a question. When you when you first started working with Transthink, you were a new grad. Is that how you say it? Well,
yeah.
You just graduated. Did they take you seriously? I think that's one of the challenges, because you were very young, and I had those problems like in some jobs that I had huge responsibilities, and they sometimes don't believe in you because you're so young. How did you manage that? How did you?
It's exactly what happened to us. So we had this hype around our thing. It was in the papers and the radio, and somebody asked Transthink, would you buy from these students? And they're like, we're looking into this. I'm like, yes, looking into this. And then hype dies down. We quit our job offers. We started business. I'm like, you're going to buy this from us? Like, actually, we'll build it ourselves. And we're like, wah, wah. Like we're there. It's summer. We have no money, no jobs. But we started the business, and we said, okay, what if we do like a little bit of consulting on the side, and also make what we had for transit into a bigger platform. We built the first iPhone app in Canada, because iPhone just came out, using our technology for acquiring bus schedules. So we built an app, and then we built a mobile website, and then a Facebook app, because that was also cool back in 2007. And we kept talking to the transit people, and like, wow, we haven't even had our first meeting to talk about doing this. Meanwhile, these two kids could have a platform that's now like 4 or 5 times more powerful than it used to be. Let's get it from them. So they paid us, I remember, $20,000, which I thought was like all the money in the world. And it was such a big difference for us. We were very thankful they did that. But it was a 6 months gap. between us thinking they're going to do it tomorrow and getting the deal actually done. And it came down to, a person at Translink that saw the opportunity and probably just liked us and wanted to help us. And one thing I've learned in our business, it was a tough lesson, is that you think you build the best product, software, and then people are going to get it because it's the best. No, you're selling to other people that have their own real business challenges, and they have to like you as a person and trust you and trust your product. So all our business, for all these bits and bytes and software subscriptions, is just dealing with people. And if you find people that actually believe in you, you will overcome that. And if you don't, you have to look elsewhere. Because no matter how great your thing is, they will dismiss you because of their own bias. And you have to just go somewhere else to find your first customers. But yeah, we went through that exact thing. Great question.
Could you please explain a little bit more about the difference between the progressive web apps and a native app that I understand was one of the important things in your company?
Sure. So I'll try to be really brief about this. So how many of you use apps on your phones? Perfect, everybody.
Yeah.
How many of you go to websites through the browser on your phone? Would you agree that apps tend to be better than websites on mobile?
Mhm.
What is happening today is that MOBIFY and Google are working together to make websites feel like apps. So you open your browser, you go to starbucks.com, but the experience is so fast, so smooth, that you actually can't tell the difference. So progressive web app is one of our features of MOBIFY's platform that makes websites feel and function as apps, very fast, very personalized, very powerful. And the result for our customers is that their shoppers are more engaged. They end up buying more whatever you're selling, and it's actually a great way to grow revenue as a retailer and as a brand. So we have the best platform in the world for progressive web apps for commerce that we sell to these brands that can use it to get better experiences.
I want to talk a little bit about the culture of your company. And initially, when you're starting off on those early days of your startup, and how did you know you're going to be a growth company? Yeah, have a growth mindset, and also when you're onboarding new talent, whether it's volunteer, let's just say, even as intern, how did you communicate the culture of the company to them and make sure that they stay on and stay motivated?
Yeah, so for the longest time, we didn't really know if we're going to be a growth company. I mean, you hope, and maybe you're delusional, you think you're going to make it, but it was just two of us with one or two team members for the first 3-4 years working at our apartment. So we felt very strongly that we want to work with people that we enjoy working with in an environment that we personally enjoy. So we had a bad experience. Like, I worked for a bank around the corner as an intern, and John worked for a big grocery chain in IT department. And both are really archaic organizations that were not exciting, and we didn't want that. We wanted to be informal, focused on excellence, focused on innovation, no kind of bullshit, no politics. And we attracted people that also liked that. Like, we couldn't get somebody early on who likes wearing suit and tie to work because we weren't that kind of place, right? So we ended up bringing the first few employees that were kind of like us, but with different skills. And I think it's really important to know that the first 5 or 6 hires, the first 10 people, they define your culture pretty much forever, right? It will evolve as you grow, but the values will be there from the very beginning. And I think our ethos as a company was always engineering values, because we all did comp sci as undergrads, where it's about building well, it's about building for things that matter for customers, and perhaps actually that's where our weaknesses come from. Like, we weren't great initially at marketing and sales because we didn't really think of those things as we went to school. So I think that's where it starts, and then it's really important to capture your culture more formally so you can explain it to your hire number 40. Somebody comes in and you have to explain to them what this company is about. And I think today companies have advanced dramatically from even 10 years ago. So maybe you have to do less explaining because people expect a good working environment. But we have values, we have a mission statement, we talk about kind of behaviors that we are trying to foster in the company, like customers first, putting our team first as well. Like, we talk about all this at length, and we end up getting people that want to work in that kind of environment and the culture reinforces itself.
So
Yeah.
what does a day in the life of an employee at MOBIFY look like?
Well, I think it's very different depending
For
on
each-
what you do.
Yeah.
I think people at MOBIFY work really hard. At the same time, we believe in work-life balance where you only work after hours or on weekends if there's a true cause to do that. So people are not pushed to work super long hours because we don't think they can be as productive. People start fairly early because we have customers in Europe, customers in Asia. We support partners as far as Japan that use our software, global business. And yeah, we're just trying to have fun too. You know, like you spend so much time at work with your coworkers, might as well have a laugh every now and again, and not just be too serious all the time.
Thank you.
I have a question. When your company is growing and passing from small to medium, what was your challenge, or probably there's still some challenges for managing people and get them into the right culture and basically building the team in the local way?
It's a great question, and I think it's like there's just so many different challenges, and every company experiences them in maybe different order. So at one point, we had a team that was doing implementations for our software for customers. So we were actually larger in overall size. Now we have agencies that do it with us because it's better. But at some point, the company was over 100 people, and we were losing touch with employees and getting this kind of middle management built out that wasn't 100%, I think, on the same page with maybe this leadership. Like we were losing control of our messaging and alignment because we were growing too quickly. And we ended up, I think, creating pockets of politics where different departments started forming different opinions, and they were like territorial about what we should do or shouldn't do. It became more challenging to align the company. So actually, I really like to try to not to grow the team size too much too fast, especially if you're mid-size, because you add complexity of communications that you might not be able to handle yet and just don't need yet. So I think that was a challenge. It was a challenge to find qualified executives and managers that knew how to run a team. And all of us were learning from scratch. And a lot of people really scaled amazingly and became great leaders. But sometimes you hire somebody who's actually not a good leader, but you don't know what to look for. You hire somebody for the first time for this role, you're like, oh, they look like a great, leader of X. And they actually interview well, but they don't have the skills. And rarely, but I think every company has a story where to fire somebody because they were not as advertised, and we had one or two of those, and that's a very challenging experience to hire somebody, then pretty quickly have to let them go because they're actually potentially toxic to the organization and they cannot do the job they need them to do.
So since you've already gone through that, and how can you avoid it in the interview setting? What are some of the questions that you could ask that person? Yeah, they look great on paper. Maybe they have a great, site and everything. But what are some of the questions that you could ask to figure out their behaviors or this person is actually fit for your company?
Great question. I think a quick hack is that what I didn't do in the instance or I didn't do enough when I was making the hire that I ended up letting go, is reference checks, right? If you talk to former employers, typically patterns of behavior repeat themselves, right? And we even went as far as getting like one, and it was okay. But if we got two or three, we probably wouldn't have proceeded. So I regret, in that case, not doing enough reference checks, right? Because it's an easy way to get somebody's perspective. I think as far as questions go, it's great to ask people, how did they fail in the past? And sometimes like, no, I never failed, I always succeed. Which that person actually said. I thought they were joking. But no, they actually believe they always succeed. And it's
Really?
the worst thing you can hear from a person like that, because they're coming in and they're going to be all about themselves and not about their teams. And it doesn't work. So.
Anything else?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So within, and the people, the managers that actually work for you, what will be, let's say, the key things or the key things that they have as a manager?
So I think what you really want to see is, there's the basics. They have to be good people that you connect with personally because you're going to be seeing them a lot. They have to be honest. They have to be passionate about the mission. They have to be emotionally aware. They have to be curious because in a new space, you always learn things. If you're not curious, you're going to be just sitting there and you're missing out on the skills. I think that's really important. I think the more advanced skills you want to find in managers and executives they have to be talent magnets. So they have to be able to hire and retain great talent, because managers are all about their teams doing something, right? So if somebody cannot hire, they will not be successful the way they can be, because they cannot expand their department. It's a good test to ask somebody, how many people have you hired? And then talk to people that they've hired about them as a manager. Really great shortcut to see what they were like. And yeah, I think those are probably the primary things. And they have to be better than you are as their manager in whatever it is that they do. So like, I'm thankful to look at my management team and be like, wow, they're just so amazing at this thing. I'm so proud that I can work with them, and I love learning from them. If you have somebody who is not even as good as you in something, unless they're learning really quickly and they're going to quickly surpass you, it's probably not going to make sense to hire them, because you're going to be helping them more than them helping you with the job they should be doing.
Thank you.
I have a question. Talking about the same topic, how to identify this kind of values in your manager? It's really good, but how to identify that your manager has this kind of skills to hire him?
I think look at their record, right? I don't believe there is like a perfect set of interview questions where it's like CSI, sit down, you're like, tell me this and this, I figured you out, right? Like, it doesn't really work like this. We're not as good, I think, as we think sometimes in interviewing. People are really good at telling you what you want to hear. Anybody who is worth any salt will tell you exactly what you want to hear. People can figure you out. So I look at the record of a person, what they've done before, and if they haven't done much before, what are they super passionate about, and you know they're going to like work 24/7 to figure that thing out. And I think also, especially if you're in Vancouver, stay here. It's a smaller city, smaller town. People know everybody the way you wouldn't believe, and news spreads fast. So invest in relationships early to see people that are amazing. Just like make sure you know them, they know you, and you're current, and you track their career journey. Maybe 4 or 5 years from now, you'll hire them, or they'll hire you, or they partner with you. Who knows? So I think investing a lot of time in getting to know top talent and showing up to spend time with these people is also how you build connections that over time can help. Like our early team at MOBIFY, probably 50% of engineers came from a club we ran at SFU called Mobile Mondays, where John and I would just for free show up and talk about mobile trends that we've seen and give people pizza, and we felt good about that. And like, I look at the people there, and a good chunk of them are still at the company. The ones that moved on are in Silicon Valley, great companies, and that one club. And the club was just an excuse to get together. People were amazing to begin with. Yet I think the activity of bringing people together was kind of, in essence, the recruiting thing from MOBIFY that wasn't even in existence yet,
Just to finish my question again, and do you research Facebook or something about your management, your management team, or about your staffs to check it out, what kind of values?
So do I check somebody's Instagram out before I hire them? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's training now, I think.
Yeah.
To identify.
I guess
the
like the short answer is no. Like I think there is a balance between somebody's personal life and somebody's business. I just think you can go crazy, and I don't feel it's right. And I feel like you should stick to LinkedIn, you should stick to maybe Twitter, because Twitter is a professional channel. I use it a lot. But yeah, I wouldn't go and try to get to somebody's hair and figure out like things that are not business related. Because it's important to have, I think, in life some separation between the two. And in fact, it's like whoever personality is to the person, they'll come out that way anyway in interviews or in how they work. So it's very hard to be one person at work and a very different person in your personal life. Usually you're one and the same.
So as a leader, how do you de-stress and how do you overcome mental blocks? Especially relating, the early days, which is very tough, and also bringing it to now. What's the difference? Has it changed your techniques, or?
I think it's such a great question. I think it doesn't get asked enough. It's really hard sometimes, and you get better as things get even more hard. So like any entrepreneur you look at, he's probably struggling with something huge, but they're so good at controlling themselves that you don't even see it, right? So I think for me early on, like looking back, I feel that was so easy because I didn't have a team, I didn't have investors, customers. It was really just me and my best friend and our team. Like stakes were much lower than I think they become over time. So being passionate to me went a long way. Like if I didn't like what I was doing, I would just break pretty quickly because it's irrational to be working on a startup because it's probably going to fail. Most startups fail. So that passion gave me energy, and I was really excited to do that. And I think over time I have to develop more specific techniques and kind of routines to deal with this. So like there's many tools, exercise. Everybody talks about it. Nobody's secretly doing it, or I think people don't do it enough. So it's really important for me to do it because like, if your body is relaxed, you can't be anxious in the same way in your mind. So there's really that connection. I think meditation gets really overhyped as like a way to solve everything. I don't think it is. But like I meditate a couple times a day, after things, before things. Like I meditate twice today. I had an important call in the morning, so I took 5 minutes to like really zone out, and then like something pissed me off. So I'm like, okay, before I'm going to come here and talk, I'm going to take a moment so I can recharge, because if you're angry, you can't really have a conversation with anybody, right? That's a good shortcut. And the good thing about meditation is that you don't have to do much. You just sit in the corner, close your eyes, and kind of tune out. I think it's important to have a team that can take the load off your shoulders, because you cannot do it all on your own. It's all about the people. It's all about your team. So I'm really grateful to have the team that I can rely on to do things they're responsible for. And there's always a fire raging somewhere in the business that all of us are focused on, and I jump in to try to help with. But if I didn't have people around me that are amazing, it would be just pointless, because the expectations will crush you. So investing in in those people around you is the best thing to make sure that you don't break. And also a personal front, I'm lucky to have a girlfriend in my life that really helps me with tuning out of work stuff. And I think if you are only focused on work, you can also just go crazy. So I would recommend you don't do that.
In these moments of uncertainty, to whom you look for and how? In these moments, did you feel a little bit difficult, or feel like it's going to be harder? To which person you think, or who has been your mentor?
That's a great question. So, like I think all of you in this room, I haven't been born in Canada. I was actually born in Russia, and I came here when I was 15 years old. And I do credit some of how I work to how like life is there, where there is pretty clear early on in life that like it's all up to you, and sometimes there's no second chances to do the same thing twice. Like it's not as bleak maybe, but like I really grew up with this feeling that like you have to give your best shot, your everything, and like there's no turning back. So I just have that in me innate, based on the challenges of being in that country. I think it taught me a lot, and I think it really helps because people here that are born here are amazing, yet sometimes they have a lot of options in life, and it's tough to be focused if you could do all these things. But like I never felt that I could do anything. I felt like I have to do this thing really well. So I think because you're all immigrants, you already have that in you. You already have this focus on giving your current opportunity your best shot. I think there's a lot of guidance that you get from that. And I think also in my world today, like I have a great board of investors, and I have people on that board that have done what I'm doing before, and they've seen it all play out, and I can talk to them about my challenges and say, oh, I've seen this company go through this before, and here's what they've done, and maybe it's not the right thing for you, but everybody's struggling with something. So it's important to know that nobody has it perfect, and no company, no matter how great they'll look, is just super smooth. Because everybody is going through a challenge, and all we can do is just do our best, and then whatever is going to happen is going to happen.
So you said something that was really great. You said that a lot of people know that, for example, exercising and meditation is good for you, but not enough people are actually doing it because of this mental block. It's good for you, but taking action to do it. And talking to a lot of CEOs who've been in their business maybe 11 years or 5 years in the business, or they're just starting off, when you privately speak to them, you know that, they're taking anti-anxiety medication, seeing therapists, but there are a lot of things that are not talked about because of the fear of, okay, I'm a leader and people look up to me, and this is the image that I'm projecting, but what if I show vulnerability, and how is that going to affect my business? So there's lots that is not being talked about right now, that, Fast Company is starting to write about it, and how it's starting to write about it, that, entrepreneurs are suffering in silence, and no one's like really talking about it, and they're talking about the flaws with the system, like seeing a therapist or a psychologist, CBT doesn't really work. And what do you recommend? What do you think? How do you handle that, the vulnerability? Being vulnerable, yet I'm the leader and I'm leading it, so it's okay to talk about all of that and move on. I mean,
I'm not sure if I'm the best example of how to do it right. I think I'm still learning how to be better at it. Also, a flip side of growing up in Russia, definitely a culture where it's not cool to be vulnerable, right? Everybody's putting on a face. So I had to also learn how to be more upfront with myself and people around me, around things that are not perfect and where I need help. I think there is a balance to strike, though, because people do look for inspiration and they do want to feel taken care of. So if you come to your company, it's like therapy for you, and you tell everybody what they think, they will just say, okay, maybe I should be here, I should be somewhere else, because everybody's human, right? And part of being a leader is giving people certainty when you might not have certainty. That's what people sign up for, right? They sign up for feeling like you're going to figure it out, and that even though life is challenging and businesses are complicated, they can come to you as an employer, and you help them get through life. It's the contract between a company and an employee, right?
Right.
So I think there's definitely that sweet spot to strike, and I think you're right that this should be talked about more, because then if the leadership is suffering in silence, their team is going to also suffer in silence. So I was lucky to bring in people into my team, leadership level, that besides being good professionally, they have that mindset of being vulnerable and focused on coaching and focused on telling others how they feel, but without also that costing them confidence of their teams, because you have to make sure people are ready to follow you even if you're going through a struggle, right? Pretty dark stuff we're talking about. Wow, look at the turn of this conversation.
Sorry,
but it's an important topic, right? You can go look at a TED Talk anytime about it. I'm crushing it, right?
Okay, we can shift the conversation. Go ahead, you go ahead.
Go ahead.
Talking about if nothing is perfect, I really believe that success is made from mistakes. I don't know, would you share maybe any breakdown or any mistake
That was my question. Lessons learned, yeah.
that is you really learn and say, okay, this is part of the success of life?
Yeah. I think probably every mistake that there is probably have made at some point. So mistakes and failures, or both? Both? Okay. Because sometimes you fail because of things that appear to be external. So one failure that really kind of got me going is I came to Canada and I couldn't speak English at all at 15. I knew how to read. And my first year, I went to high school here, wasn't great. I didn't make friends. So second year was grade 12, and I had to go to university next year. And I realized, based on my scores, I got an essay back as C-, that if I don't get my English in order, I will not be able to get to my program of choice, comp sci, which was really hard to get into at the time. So I talked to my teacher. She was really kind. She gave me work to do after class. I really focused on it. She walked me through things, and in a year, I was able to get a good grade and learn to speak the language while I was still a teenager. So better than if I was doing it later. And if I didn't get that C- on an essay, I wouldn't actually focus on getting into university and studying what I love. So I think that was an important wake-up call. I think in business, when we started a business and then Transit said no, that was a wake-up call. I'm like, crap, it's actually not easy. It's going to be very hard, but we're going to continue to try to do that. There have been times where a key member of my team quits, and sometimes people didn't do a good job quitting. I'm on vacation, I get an email saying I'm done next week, and something important is happening, and everything stops for a second when your body processes what you have to do next. We've had times when the company was running out of money, classic entrepreneur thing, and you need to do this and this to get money in the bank, but like you definitely can't tell your team. You can't, right? Because people, you have to make it happen as well. You can't give people surprises that they're not ready for. You just have to figure it out. But people need to feel confident about their paycheck. In the early days, it was really hard. Like, go to a post box to see if there's a check from a customer. If you don't get that check, you can't pay, our 2 employees. So that was, I remember, very hard to get over. But you realize responsibility you have as an entrepreneur, and like if you have to fire people because like you didn't meet your sales goals, it always sucks. So I think that responsibility for the team's well-being, it's a really hard lesson that you learn, I think, very quickly as an entrepreneur, and it really matures you as a person to realize it's not all about you at all. It's about the team succeeding together and then doing something. And then, of course, failed products that we invested money that didn't go anywhere, deals, like a deal that I was talking about that we didn't win. Warby Parker? Have you heard of Warby Parker? The glassware eyewear company. So 6 years ago, we were in contracts with them to do a deal. They were much smaller than they used to be, than they are now. And like, CEO is okay with the deal, and they hire a new CTO who's like, actually, I'm not going to use a vendor for this project. I'm going to kill this deal. And like, change our whole course of the company. But it's been 6 years, and we're still talking to them. So they might be looking at buying our newest product. So even when I fail that kind of way, I still want to see like maybe it's a lesson. In X years from now, we're actually going to get the outcome that we want if we learn from our mistakes and do a better job. Because there was a reason why it didn't succeed in the first place. So the important thing is to learn from it, not just to brush it over.
What do you think is coming next? Because we moved from a offline face-to-face model business to not completely, but I think everybody just think about technology these days, and people are coming back and go to meditation because it's not the solution. So what's coming next?
I think I was talking today to one of our investors about cryptocurrency, which is a hot topic. So he's somebody who is like super aware of the trends because they invest in companies, and he said that they really believe that's going to be a big change in financial systems over the next 10, 15 years. Like, it's not going to solve every problem, but we'll have less central banks doing stuff and more software cryptocurrencies governing how money gets sent. I think that's going to be a big shift that might, for consumers, bring down the cost of wiring transfers to family or whatever. I think mobile is honestly still just starting. I think so much has changed, yet there's so many industries that are still not using mobile to change how they operate. Like, I think when we look at the world 10, 20 years from now, it's going to be even more mobile oriented. I think wearable devices are becoming bigger. Like, you can now have a watch that has a cell phone in it. You don't have to have your smartphone around. And I think car sharing is going to be big everywhere in the world except Vancouver. We're not going to ever get it. I'm joking about that. Please promise, make it work.
Thinking about MOBIFY, what's next? Is to increase the number of countries using your current products, or thinking about new products, or both?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Thank you, Bruno. We spent 2.5 years working on our newest product, and now it's taking off in a big way. So priority one is to make sure we get a lot of customers signed up, because the way you grow a business is you sell something, you fund more research, you sell more. It's like a flywheel, right? So our focus is on making sure we can get those next 5, 10, 20 big global brands using our platform. But then well, after that is like, how do you innovate? How do you reinvest that into the next product? Because our platform is differentiated today because of stuff we decided on 2 years ago. So if you want to be relevant in 2021, now is the time to invest in AI technology or something else. So we're also very much thinking about that, and it can be a very challenging balance because our team sometimes wants to always work on cool ideas, but sometimes they have to work on way less cool ideas to deliver on a new platform and just help a customer go live. Like, we had a big customer closed in May, where our partner who was doing delivery actually was going to be late, and the customer would be really upset. So we had to shift a couple of people from working on a cool product feature to helping with the build, because this customer is so huge, like it's so important to get it right. And so I think for the company, but for the engineers moving over, it's actually really upsetting. and just trying to find how to make up for that because they want to build the future that they want to build. So it can be a tough balance to strike in a mid-sized company for sure.
So as newcomers or in Canada and getting integrated into a community, what conferences or events do you suggest that we could go to really meet people in the community? And
I think Vancouver and Canada in general is just so much better with this than 10 years ago. So 10 years ago, there was nothing. In my year, and our years, nobody else started businesses, I think, except one person, and no startup events. So, but over time, it just bloomed. So we host events at our office, MOBIFY. We probably host a couple of meetup every week, anything from JavaScript, React, to marketing technology, to HR, stuff like that. So I just think if you go to meetup.com, if you look at different coding schools, if you look at entrepreneurship initiatives, like there's so much going on. I think if you wanted to, you could probably go to an event twice a week and get nothing done ever, but go to every event. So yeah, I think it's less of a challenge than it used to be. And also, there are so many great podcasts with best of Silicon Valley and American investors. Like there's Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z podcast. There is all the TED stuff. Like if you want to just learn all day long and get amazing information, and we can't afford to do that because we have businesses to build, but at the same time, there's so much more information than there used to be to how to build a business that you should definitely budget 2 to 3 hours a week to just get the latest information in, because that's how you learn how to do things right.
in the early days, what were some of the podcasts you were listening to?
I think in the earliest days there was no podcast, but I've been listening to the same set over the last few years. Mm-hmm. So the venture capital firms in Silicon Valley, they just have all sorts of companies drop by. So yeah, it's a good bet.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought to sell completely your company and jump in another business idea? Why and why not?
I think it's a very specific question and answer for any entrepreneur and any of their idea. Like I always believed that mobile is going to be bigger in a couple of years. Mobile commerce, specifically our segment, I believe is going to only get bigger. So why sell? And I also believe that we haven't realized our full potential as a team and as a product business early on. So in my mind, it was always clear that the right way is to go forward. I'm not sure if everybody was always thinking the same way, but that's kind of what I think helped us advance and try new things.
How many people are working now in MOBIFY, and how is it growing up, like since 2007?
Yeah, so it's about 70 people now. I mentioned that at a point in time it was over 100 people. We had a team that we no longer have. And yeah, the first 4 or 5 years it was 5-6 people, and then it really ballooned over a few years, and then it went a bit down. Yeah. But our revenues, like they're growing faster than the headcount for our new product. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. Good luck.
Probably you had to change a lot the workplace, not just like buying cool things, but increasing the space. How did you select these things? You have a meeting with your team to select, to hire, because workplace means a lot for employees to improve productivity and things like that. Can you just grow and?
So you mean the office environment?
Yeah.
We always wanted to do the best we can with limited resources. So it's just really important to have like when we had an apartment, you know, I have a photo, I'm sitting on the floor because the desks and the chairs are for people that come in to work with us every day, right? But like you give what you can, and now we're super fortunate to have an amazing office actually downstairs from Microsoft in the same building if you went to the garage. So in the Nordstrom building. Our team has all the ideas of how to make it better. So our team designed it essentially for different departments. They had the budget and they picked with the company was doing the architecture how to set it up. But also one thing you learn, you start, you think I'm starting something, I'm going to come up with good ideas because it's my job. But you quickly realize that all the best ideas come from people around you, and it's how do you facilitate that process? How do you capture those ideas and give them opportunity to grow into something? That's really the challenge of anything that is at even medium scale. Mm-hmm. Because people that you hire should be much smarter than you are. And then if if you don't use the ideas, you're wasting potential.
I wanted to ask one thing. Which, like, the first hire you made, which role was it? And how did you identify that you needed that new person? And also, well, I believe when it was when you were beginning and you didn't have such a huge revenue, or how was it? Like, in which stage of the company was it?
Yeah.
Like that story.
So our first full-time employee that was not a founder was a designer, because we knew we couldn't design, and we needed to have an interface built for our service for building mobile sites, and then for the TransLink iPhone app that we did. So like somebody needed to draw the buttons for like SkyTrain and CBus, and we couldn't do it. So we hired a designer, Nick, who was working with us for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really like you hire based on kind of these skills, and we tried outsourcing that first to like a firm somewhere like on the internet to like design those icons. They were horrible, so we realized the only way to have a good process is to hire somebody full time, and that was a good idea. And then a mistake we made is we had a mindset early on that like we should hire to solve our needs, and you just overhire, because sometimes you should subcontract. And we were like we have to have for every role somebody has to be doing it, but quickly it gets really expensive, hard to manage, and I just think unnecessary.
Do you think one of the good ways to bring someone on board is to do a project with them and see how well you work together at the early stages, and then bring them on board?
Yes. In fact, our interview process is kind of like that. So we have something we call MOBIFY Day, where before you get an offer, you come in to work with us for 4 hours on a problem. It used to be an entire day, but we have to cut it down because people are very busy nowadays. So it's serving two purposes. Number one is for us to continue to complete our assessment, but it's also for the person to assess us, right? Because you don't want somebody to sign up if they actually are not going to like us, or not going to like the environment or style of our software development. So this two-sided vetting is actually good for everybody, and it's one part of our process that we almost never waive. We almost always do it because it's how we are able to attract really strong people that are sharing our values and our culture and work well with the rest of the group.
And how do you increase employee performance and focus? Obviously, there are so many ways. Do you have a coach? Because you said a lot of the employees, they have coaches, or they believe in about personal growth. Do you have coaches on site that come in, or?
So we have our COO, Jeff, who is a certified coach. And one of his passions is people development, and he just coaches people that need coaching. And a few people have external coaches that are more specific to the domain that they work in. But we are lucky to have somebody internally who's doing that a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And, well, sorry, question regarding marketing and sales. At what do you have a department of marketing and sales? And at what point you decided to like hire them? You know, because at the beginning, I believe you did all that. And I've been in companies, like in small companies that start growing and growing, and the commercial is still the owner of the company that doesn't have anything, well, doesn't have the experience or the knowledge to do that. And the company starts going down, and I want to know your experience regarding that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very specific to the business.
Yeah.
And for us, we felt at some point that somebody could do a better job selling than we could, and there's more to be sold than we could sell with our then people. So we hired our first sales representative, Tori, who came in, and she had an amazing personality. People really bonded with her, and she was able to go in and close a lot of really early deals for us. I just felt that I didn't have the time to do that, so we hired somebody to give them that job. And then marketing was after that. We felt that we weren't getting enough exposure and enough leads to sell, so we hired somebody to do marketing. And then at scale right now, we definitely have both departments, and it's almost like it's more and more a mathematical model where you look at how you're doing in sales against your investment in your sales team and marketing, and like how much it costs to acquire $1 in new software revenue, and then you realize, okay, actually I have a great model here, I should invest more in marketing to get more leads and close more deals. So it's becoming more and more of a revenue engine. which is something that was completely not obvious to me early on. I thought it was like black magic. You just like hire salespeople and revenue shows up. But companies at scale, it's math, and then it's actually pretty incredible how predictable it can be for larger companies if they do a good job with looking at how they acquire leads and sell, and they hire a good sales team. But early on, if you don't have time to sell anymore, hire somebody to do it, or if you could hire somebody who's better than you. And their marketing is when they are selling, and you're like, okay, if they had more opportunities, it would be even better off you hire marketing. You have to only do that hire when you have product market fit, so when your product is actually ready to be sold. If you don't have that yet, you have to be in founder mode, going and trying to sell it yourself so you can complete it, because sales expects to have something that they can just like put in the bag and sell, to use the metaphor, right? So if it's not done, they're going to struggle. You're the best salesperson in the early days.
Like probably when you went to Europe,
Yeah, travel.
Yeah.
Travel breaks all your assumptions. For you, it's
New
different
experience.
because you came from a different part of the world. You already have a different mindset of looking at Vancouver and Canada versus people that grew up here. So you have a different view. It's already powerful. But aside from that, like the more you can learn and read and just get like current what's going on in different parts of the world, the more you're going to be open to perspectives, look at things differently. It's learning.
Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, no worries.
Yeah,
Thanks for
that
having
was-
me. Thank you. It's been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.